And we're back. I've always wanted to say that, guys.
Hey.
Always wanted to start a podcast off as if we're riff tracks, even though we're not.
It felt magical for a brief moment. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's a prototypical loud and drunk thing. Just, it's stealing from riff tracks.
I hope it was...
Because that was the origin of what this podcast was supposed to be.
I love riff tracks.
Kinda, yeah.
I hope that one day they listen to this. I'm a much bigger fan of Michael than of Joel, so if Joel is listening, I apologize.
Well,
I don't.
No, I'm gonna be a dick about it.
No, he's fine.
He's a great writer.
He is good. He's
Michael
very good.
Mike was much funnier.
Justin, what are you drinking, sir?
So tonight, I'm drinking Corona and a mystery glass of bourbon.
Yeah, it's quite nice. Right?
Mystery-
I'm very excited.
Mystery bourbon is always a good bourbon.
Yes.
You don't have
I'm
to
having a
Yeah,
good time.
back in prison, they used to
Mr. Bourbon.
Pedro,
Mystery
sir.
Bourbon 3000.
I have got also a glass of mystery bourbon. I have suspicions as to what it is, but it's really not mine to judge, so I'm just going to drink it.
And Moses, what are you drinking over there,
I
buddy?
have a couple of different things.
He does.
Wow.
I got my old standby Pabst Blue Ribbon. I'm drinking some of this lychee soshu, and I have a tall glass of gummy bears to sip on.
Wait, a glass of gummy bears?
You hear how it's not jingling?
It reacted perfectly.
It really
Gummy
is.
Bears do.
Yeah.
From last week. I finished my mushroom coffee.
They're still good.
Those it's gummy bears. How could it go bad?
I like the white ones. It's a
Wow.
side note. We can get back.
So we're coming to you at our best.
Boy.
Yes. I am drinking a Beefeater and Diet Coke. It throws people off.
It does.
Every
It does.
bar I go to, they're like, together?
Mhm.
And I'm like, yes, I have to explain to them that I am very much my father, and this is his drink,
Well,
and this is what I go with. And I,
It threw me off
Yeah.
too, because like for me, like clear liquors, it's like clear and clear.
yeah.
It's always kind of the way I've gone. But like, yeah,
that's
like
actually true.
yeah, like-
actually, yeah.
like brown liquor, like your whiskeys or your rums, Coke or
Yeah.
Diet Coke
Yeah.
or something. So like to see gin, which I'm a big proponent of, with like a Coke product is
Yeah.
very
But you know
strange
what
for me.
though? I at first I was agreeing with you,
Yeah.
but a Cuba Libre. It's a classic drink, and it's made with clear rum.
It is made with clear rum.
It's made with clear
Yeah,
rum.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so that's
fair.
mixing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like white and colored. Yeah,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is it's just so offensive to some people.
But guys, a big reason, I usually drink the Hendrickson Club,
Yeah.
but big reason for drinking this now is I have had a week. And it
Ooh.
effectively started because, and you guys full well know that I do things for this podcast, and I don't care if I humiliate myself.
Mm.
That's why we love you, Dan.
Yes.
Thought
I-
that was the podcast itself.
I did a speed dating thing.
Oh, interesting.
Very recently. And, well, I don't want to go too much into that. Maybe you guys can roast me towards the end of the podcast for
I'd
doing
like
it.
to.
We'll bookmark it. We'll bookmark
I
it.
have questions on how that even works.
So I'll go first.
So, Mr. Pedro, I had met you earlier that day to have a couple drinks because I did not want to do this.
Yeah.
It was very much not my vibe. But I'm like, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this with a few drinks in my system.
Yeah.
So I met with you, had a few drinks, show up there, make an ass out of myself.
I
or
could not
whatever.
imagine raw dogging that sober.
No, I agree. I agree.
Any lookers?
Yeah, there's a few girls that.
I for a moment heard hookers.
yeah.
I'll be honest. That's just
You hear
my,
what-
did have
you
to
hear
I have
what you
shitty
wanna
hearing
hear.
at my age.
You hear what you want to hear.
I did have to process that. I did also think you said hookers, but I'm like, no, he said lookers.
Remember the
Yeah.
roastings at the end?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, I know.
So this is where this event was at is at a place that a mutual friend
Yeah.
of ours, she owns and operates it. And one of the reasons I actually went, I was like, oh, I know someone there, so if I humiliate myself, at least I'll have an audience.
Yes.
So go through evening, whatever. I leave super early because I don't care.
My bitches.
Yeah, I legit I left 10 minutes early.
Oh,
Just-
Somebody was sitting at a table by themselves waiting for you to sit down. with
If
them.
we go into this later on, I can tell you exactly what happened, and it's hilarious.
okay.
But-
Fantastic.
Stick around.
Stick around, folks. It's gonna get good.
But so I went back home. It's like 7 o'clock, and I'm like, all right, it's still a Saturday night. I don't want to stay home like a loser. So I went out to a local bar that I had never gone to before, and I'm texting with, mechanic about a future podcast. I'm texting with our friend about the evening.
Mhm.
And she said, I got tipped $6. And this is an event that took place from 5 to 7 o'clock on a Saturday night.
Oof.
$6 fucking dollars. And 2 of them were from me. And 2 were from someone that wasn't even participating in the event. They just walked in and was like, hey, I got this thing going on. Can I please just get a coffee? And she's like, yeah, sure. Here we go.
Yeah.
$2.
Wow.
And to give you some scope, there was about, if you don't include me, I think there was about 20 people there.
Mhm.
So
Oh my
that
goodness.
math is
Yeah.
awful.
Well, good thing you didn't hook up with anyone because they're all poor. And you don't want that.
Yeah.
That's a fair
You find
point.
yourself tipping 4, you better be getting laid for it.
That's a fair point. Maybe talk about that a little later. But I think this is a good, story to lead us into talking about tipping culture,
Mm.
because I've been looking at articles and
The numbers.
Pew Research and the numbers, and a lot of people are just genuinely confused about when they're supposed to tip, how much they're supposed to tip, and what establishments or what professions do they actually tip. So I figured we could talk about that.
First of all, I love this idea. Secondly, just like right out of the gate, I just want to comment on the line that you just said. People are confused. We're talking about like if you came from a different place or different culture, different country, then okay, sure, you could be confused. But we're talking about people who took this survey that are American citizens, yes?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
this is
So
specifically
then what the
America.
fuck are you confused
They
about?
might not have known what the survey was for.
They voted for Pat Buchanan.
They're like, oh,
Yeah.
is this for
Yeah.
Family Feud? Fuck yeah, I'll answer everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like everybody should know that, like the way that I was brought up, and if you guys disagree with me, I would actually like to hear this. But like I was brought up, or at least came to some sort of an understanding that the bare minimum that you tip anybody who works in the service industry is 15%, unless they really fuck
Yeah.
you over or something like
I
that.
was
And you want to
raised-
send a message by not tipping them that.
Yeah.
I was raised Italian, so we tip everyone.
Okay. Oh yeah,
That is
yeah.
true.
I've seen that in movies.
We
yeah.
just tip everyone. We got you say hi on the street. Yeah, here's a 5 for you.
Oh,
you know.
God. I've
Well,
never
go on
gotten a
with yourself.
dime from this guy, by the way.
We don't tip you.
Yeah.
We don't tip you.
I mean,
Oh, it's like
all
that.
right, I'll jump in on that too. So, as everyone knows, I'm a mailman, and the Italian people that I deliver to, it's like a pageantry about
Oh
it.
yeah, it's all about who could tip the most.
It is. It's crazy. I have a guy that tips me at the 4th of July and Christmas,
Wow.
and it's a whole thing. He's
That's awesome.
he's an Italian contractor from
Yeah.
New Jersey, so go figure. But it's like the whole thing. He's like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah.
And it's like the slow thing, like the going.
Count
Oh,
it
they have to
out.
like fold through
Yeah.
it. Yeah, they have to.
Yeah,
like,
it's a
thumb
Jewish
through it.
bankroll, but they just gotta go through it. We
Yeah.
keep the 20s on the outside, just so
Oh
it
my
looks like
God,
there's
that's
something in
great,
the
though.
inside.
And like I'll be the first to say, like in my like line of work, most people don't tip around Christmas. It's maybe about 15% of people. That's fine. Like I'm not looking for a tip. I get paid full wages at my job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I
Yeah, they're
have
giving it to the wrong.
Yeah.
yeah. But I have worked in the service industry before working for the post office. I worked for restaurants for years, front end, and then moving to the back. And it's funny, like the people that tip will surprise you. I find, and this is my own experience, that more blue collar type people tend to
Tip better.
Yeah.
well. And while you can get big tips from more affluent people, you can also get nothing from them.
Yeah.
You're either getting a lot or you're getting nothing. There's
Yeah.
not really any in between with the people that have it.
And right, this is my own experience. So.
I'll say that as to add on to that a little bit,
Yeah.
as a generalization that I've observed, is that the way that I usually phrase it when talking about the cheapness of wealthy
Mm.
people is that they didn't get that much money by sharing it.
Mm.
Right.
Mm.
And I
Oh,
think that
yeah.
that's a way of thinking.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
I can definitely speak to that. It is.
I think that somebody who's blue collar or like works for a living is a little bit more likely to tip because they actually do know what it's like to like need some money sometimes.
They're more
you
in
know?
the line of like,
Yeah.
if I eat, we all eat.
Yeah,
And-
yeah, exactly. And like you know what it's like to want, and presumably at some point because you have that experience, somebody has probably also been kind to you at some point. You know, there's been times where like I got like, and I've never worked in an actual service industry where it was warranted. But like I sold sunglasses for a while. Somebody gave me like a $20 tip. I'm like, oh my God, this might change my life. You know, I think that when you're wealthy, you're less inclined towards it, and it kind of like embeds itself with that like you should just pull yourself up by your bootstraps type of mentality, which I personally find to be like so. I don't know, like it's to me it's like offensive. You know, but that's the mentality that a lot of very wealthy people have, and thus they don't tip very much.
I'm also looking at this too, where this Pew Research paper or whatever says that Americans say the expectation to tip has spread to more places because like you'll go somewhere and they'll be like, they'll already factor in the gratuity to it.
Well, enough. I've seen this a lot. So a lot of places now have that POS system that automatically puts it in front of your face.
Yeah.
Right. I just like that.
You run your card or whatever, and it's like, here's the 10%, 15%, and 20% tip option.
No, they have that shit at like grocery store where you're scanning and bagging your own shit. And then it's like, oh, would you like to add like 10 to 25% tip? Like, to who?
Yeah.
For what?
Well, I mean, that is wildly.
Yeah. I think that that's one of those things where it's like, and this gets into a deeper part of the conversation where we talk about actual, like, should tipping be the way that people get paid? Because, like, I've noticed this too. And, like, I like to leave, you know, if I like to go out and drink. You guys probably didn't know that. But, like, I like to go out to the bar. And I'll, like, when I go out, I leave, like, it's a minimum of 25% because tip your bartender. Yeah. And it's like, and routinely I'll leave, like, insane amounts of money, not just because I'm drunk, but because, like, that's my way of giving back to somebody who maybe can use it.
It's also
like
I don't have any kids. I have a floor, minimum 20%, absolutely not a question. But like if I'm having a great time and like the atmosphere is great, the bartender is great. If we're talking about bartenders, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that what's happened is because I've observed this too, and I'm like I'll share with you my personal embarrassment that I inflict towards myself, but it's that like. I like to always leave like an appropriate tip, you know, appropriate or more, right? I'll put it that way. And then like you go to a place where they give you, as you said, like this, you know, they turn the computer around and it's like, what percentage do you want to leave? And it's clearly it's a guilt thing. And that's an aspect or a symptom rather of the way in which this society, because tipping is so standard that now you get a company that has basically taken advantage of that system, you know? So like, it's one thing when it's just like, you're at like, I just came from, you guys know, I just came from a little bar in the woods, you know? And I always leave a good tip there. The owner is only making enough money off of the food so that he can pay his bills and live his life. And then the bartenders make their money off of that, right? It's a small little bar in the woods. You go to a larger establishment, you know, be it a Starbucks or whatever you want to call it, and now all of a sudden it's like implied that it's necessary to do so. Yeah. And I look at that and I'm like, well, listen, I understand exactly why I tip the bartender at this mom and pop bar, you know, the amount that I do, and I'm happy to do it. I'm proud to do it, to be quite honest. But then you go to like a Starbucks and it's made almost obligatory. And it makes people bitter about it because you do feel pressured. And like even myself, where it's like, again, I'm happy to sit here and pat myself on the back and be like, I leave 50% tips for bartenders because I'm a drunk, you know? But the truth of it is that even when I'm in those situations and they turn it around, it's like, you didn't do anything. So I'm not going to like, I don't really want to leave you a tip because like as you said, you know, like I rang myself. I didn't interact with another human.
Yeah. It's almost become full circle where it's like now tipping has become like this benchmark.
It's because, exactly.
You're you have to do such a shitty job not to get tipped.
Yeah. Now I will say this, and this just occurred to me as you were saying that I use the example of Starbucks, where some people are a little bit doing the work. And I'm not trying to denigrate the work that people who work at Starbucks do, but it's that Starbucks doesn't pay them enough for the work that they do. So even though I'm saying that I didn't interact with anybody, so why should I leave a tip? They still had to do work for me to get the thing that I wanted, you know? So the tip is basically compensating for what Starbucks didn't pay them. And that's an abuse of basically of the cultural system that we have, where that tip is supposed to be for the bartender who works at a small place, you know, or whatever you quantify that.
I would say it's just a quick interjection. If you are going to tip cash if you can.
Oh
Yeah.
Always tip cash because
Yeah.
anything else is just kind of like no tipping.
The,
Really.
the whole like talking about the thing on like the POS thing where you have the screen and it's like the 10, 15, 20%. It's like what comes out of that and where does it actually go?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
You know what
exactly.
I mean?
Yeah, you don't know if it's going to the person, and certainly the government is going to take a minimum of
absolutely.
20% of
No,
it.
it's documented.
It's
Yeah.
documented, so they have to take
and
something.
and let's be honest about it. If you're serving drinks, be them alcoholic or
Mhm.
otherwise, or doing any number of these service things in the United States, you're not reporting these things, and the IRS knows that you're not reporting
Yeah.
it, and we all basically turn a blind eye
Yeah.
because this is how our society is able to function.
Right.
If you make bartenders pay taxes on what they make, then nobody wants to be a bartender
Yeah.
because it's not a livable wage.
And
But, yeah.
also, when it comes to like going to places like coffee places, I fully delineate between like a Starbucks and like an individually owned
Oh, of
place like our
course, yeah.
friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like there is at Starbucks, it's more formulaic. There are ways to do things where I feel like there is, I guess, what you would call like an actual touch to
an art form
An
to
art form to-
to making the coffee
in
or whatever you're
most
getting there.
cases. But like our friends that ran this
Probably
this event.
just do a shout out to the cafe.
Well,
Oh yeah, I didn't know what the proper thing was to do.
Yeah,
So I was just
yeah,
like,
probably to give props.
Yeah.
no,
No.
It's a fine establishment. I got
Yeah.
the freaking orange cinnamon tea, and I enjoyed it. I spilled it
I
immediately,
hear props.
It sounds delicious.
and then that was really funny too because as soon as I did that, I was just like, I had to go. I kept walking behind, like practically into the kitchen,
Yeah.
and I was just like, "Hey, I made a mess. Can I get us some paper towels?"
We're saving all these insults for after.
Yeah. But like, all right. So I brought up the data before, and Americans think that the expectation of where to tip has increased. So here's the actual numbers. According to Pew Research, 72% of Americans that participate in this poll, obviously, think that you're expected to tip in more places than you ought to.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what is this? 23% is like about the same amount of places as because what is the most Americans say expectations of tipping have spread to more places. Percentage of U.S. adults that say that tipping is expected in compared with 5 years ago.
I mean,
What
I
are
think
the
that's
new
because I see
places?
more of the POS system thing now,
Yeah.
where it's like it puts it in front of your face.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, all right, well now like because you're using that with like a
Mhm.
little tablet or something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and you're just like, oh, geez. They do that in like supermarkets. Like, hey, do you want to like donate like $2
Oh,
or the
yeah,
rest of your bill to
So,
contribute to like?
I want to
kids with
comment
brain
on
cancer.
that. That's outside of tipping culture,
Yes,
but I
yes,
actually,
yeah,
this is like something that like sticks in my craw, to use the old-fashioned
Nice.
verbiage.
Gross.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. When you go to like a Wendy's and they're like, "Do you want to donate to this or to the supermarket?" The bottom line about those things is that they're very often, not always. I won't talk shit about every corporation that does it, but a large percentage of the time, these things are what they're doing is that you donate the money in theory to the
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
So you're saying, "Hey, ShopRite, yes, I would like to round up, or let's just call it $1 to make that easy."
Yeah.
Right. So I'd like to give $1 to this thing that you're, contributing money to. Right. So they take your dollar because you gave it to ShopRite.
Mhm.
Right. So now ShopRite has your dollar. Right. That hasn't gone to anything.
No.
And now they take that money, the percentage that they deem appropriate, and they donate that.
Yes.
And the way in which they do that legally is that you only need to donate 15% of the donation to the thing that you're doing
absolutely
I thought it
for
was
it
less
to be
than that.
legal in a, what is that, a 503?
503.
Something like
Yep,
that.
Yep.
The government regulation for that.
Yep,
So
503C,
basically,
Yeah.
when you give that dollar to a ShopRite, they take 85 cents of it and put it in their pocket
Yep.
because they have to process your payment.
It's for like their
Right?
administrative
And so they-
processing. fees.
exactly.
Honestly,
Because
that's fair
ShopRite
because
is
I
at-
steal more
yeah.
than that.
ShopRite is basically saying that because you burdened me with taking your dollar,
You're making me do
it's gonna-
this for you.
It's going to cost me 85 cents to do this, so I'm going to give 15 cents to save children who have cancer, and the rest of it I need. And that's the end of the
For my
transaction.
troubles.
To help those children that have cancer.
Yeah, yeah. So my point about that would be never fucking do that.
Yeah, no, I don't.
It's horrible.
But
yeah.
but the point that I was making is that it kind of puts you on the spot.
It
It's like,
does.
you don't
It's
want to give
purposeful. It's purposeful.
You don't want to give money to children with brain cancer.
Right.
What are you, an inhuman
It's a guilt
monster?
thing.
I've been called out on that because it was for juvenile diabetes,
Mm.
and it just so happened that I'm like, no, I don't want to give to that, and he's like, why? You don't care about people with juvenile diabetes?
Like,
I'm like,
listen,
no,
Mike.
I don't. I'm one of them. Fuck those people. Fuck them right in their ass. I deserve to die.
You just met a man with a lot of self-hatred. You should not have opened up that can.
And then I stood there until the police came to escort me out.
That's your average Tuesday, huh?
It was a Tuesday.
All right, so let's go through some of the data here from this Pew Research
Please,
paper.
yeah.
Some of the bullet points. The public is more likely to oppose than favor suggested tip amounts. So as you guys were talking
Yeah.
about, like, you get like the 20, 25,
Yeah.
30.
There's something about it. It like strikes something in you. It's
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah, I don't like any
you
of
don't
these
tell me what to
options.
do.
Yeah.
There's no option to like lower it or make it more.
Yeah.
It's only those three options. Like, I don't like any of them.
I've seen that a bunch too. It's either like 18, 20, 25,
Whatever.
or
Yeah,
like
yeah,
20,
yeah,
25,
yeah,
30,
yeah.
something like
And
that.
those numbers are arrived at based off of calculations of what people
course,
are likely
of course,
to choose.
yeah.
I ignore all of that shit. That said, I try to avoid places where that is a thing that could come up from that. Because as much as I bitch about it, I absolutely get that guilt. You know, I'm just not going to buy into it because I'm
Mhm.
Jewish.
My birthright.
I've been around that block, you know.
I got other guilt to take up this spot.
Yeah.
Next bullet point is Americans broadly oppose automatic service charges. About 7 in 10 adults, 72%, say they oppose businesses including automatic service charges or tips on customers' bills regardless of group size. So you show up to a restaurant, there's about
Yeah.
like 12 of you, and you get
They have an
automatically.
automatic
It's usually like a
X
20,
amount of
15, 20%
So,
gratuity.
I'll
like
give
that.
you then, if I may chime
Yeah,
in.
please.
Go
I
right
actually
ahead.
have a story about this in terms of why I understand that that's a thing. And this story is anecdotal, so
I'll probably end up backing you on this.
we all know this story. But so I walked into a bar that I love, that I go to all the time.
Mhm.
This was like 2 days ago. I walk in and I sit down, and a bartender who I know there, Jack, he comes over, and he was like, man, I thought you were banned from here. And I'm like, what? and he goes, and I'm like, and now I'm like running through like I'm
Yeah,
neurotic,
what did I
you know,
do?
so I'm
What
like,
did I
I'm like,
do? Yeah.
am I banned straight up here? Do I not remember? Did I like lose a day? You know? And he's like, I got the group text like for all the bartenders, and they sent out a message that was like, do you guys know that guy with tattoos, the shaved head, and a beard who's really loud? Like, he's banned. Never let him back in. And Jack says to me, and he's like, that's you. I'm like, oh my God, that's me.
What did I
Am I
do?
banned? And so he explains it further. And apparently there's some other guy there who matches my description. White man, you know.
I get it.
They didn't mention that, you know. But some dude there, he like routinely goes in, and like the final straw, he's all of those things which are annoying. I will own up to how obnoxious I can be.
Yes.
But Dan, you don't have to fucking.
No, go on.
I know what I am. But this guy apparently routinely goes in and does this. But the last straw is that he went in, he had a $55 tab,
Okay.
and he tipped them 70 cents.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's insulting.
That's
It's insulting.
really
Yeah,
insulting.
exactly.
Just don't tip anything.
Don't
Yeah.
tip anything. And I said this, and he was like, so it wasn't you. And I'm like, oh, thank God, because I need a whiskey after this conversation. My agita is
I
up
mean,
here.
that is insane.
It's
to me.
insulting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But people, I don't know. People are pieces of shit.
mean,
And this is
yeah.
the reason that I do understand when you have something like if your group is over 6 or 8,
Mhm.
that will automatically add this, because while one hand does wash the other, and I think about this when I leave, because I'll leave like, you know, like to drinking, and I leave like the, you know, the over the top tip sometimes, you know. Part of my thinking about that is that other people are leaving no tip, and that's
Yep.
fucked up.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, with the
So-
big party for a table, because it's eaten up those other tables,
Yeah.
that could have been like multiple two
Well,
tops
Also,
instead of this
so
one.
this was explained to me by multiple bartenders. You might know this since you worked in the industry.
Yeah.
This was
I'm
explained
gonna
to me
chime in when you're done.
multiple people. But they go, basically what happens is that and the reason that it's specific to like 6 or 8 or whatever, I think that back to that original point, I do get why that regulation is there. But for the 6 or the 8, the thing that apparently happens is that you've got those people, let's just call it 8, and the bill arrives, and there's obviously one bill. And you go, let's pass this around. And everybody's like, oh, I'm going to pay it. I'm going to pay it. I'm going to pay it. And nobody ends up leaving the tip.
This is absolutely true. I want to chime in from when I worked at a restaurant, when we would have big tables and we didn't have an added on automatic gratuity. When we had these big groups, there was some sort of psychological thing that would happen that everybody just thinks is covered and they fucking leave. And
yeah,
that's it.
And nobody gets paid.
Yeah.
Nobody gets paid. You just worked your ass off for a fucking table of 8.
I think when you have smaller groups, there is like a level of like self accountability within the group. When you have a group where not everybody can like have one-on-one conversation with each other, I think it's just there's something that's like it's assumed it was taken care of.
Right.
Let's get out of here.
But
Bye.
A party of 8 is going to sit longer than a party of 2 or 4.
Always.
Also,
And that's
and
you have to turn over those tables to get the tips. And generally, even if all of those other 2 tops and 4 tops gave you $2, it would still equal more than you're getting off of that one table if you didn't include that gratuity.
Especially if that fucking 8-person table leaves you zero.
Zero. Yeah. So then you just wasted kind of your whole fucking night to make
for
nothing.
For nothing. Yeah. Yeah, you got
where you could have maybe made
$2.50 for the hour.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. But that is something. I distinctly remember that from working in the restaurant. I always hated it because like I'd come in, what's on the book for tonight? We got a 16. It's like I'd be like,
yeah.
We're in a night that, and then this is 20 something years ago, where I'd walk home, like leave the place with like maybe $300 to $500 in tips. I could walk out of there with like $100 in tips because I'm
just because of the one
fully
table.
Focusing on this shit show of a circus that is a 16-person party.
Yeah,
and with a couple like 2 tops here and there. Yeah, there is something about that. Like, obviously, it's just my own.
It's the group thing. It's group mentality, the way people think, and also think about the dynamics of like, like let's say 4 people, the 4 of us go out and sit down. We are communicating. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But also, it's like a very casual communication. We all know each other.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if you ask me, like, Pete, what was the last time that you went out and had dinner with 16 people?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to tell you that I don't know 16 people. That's not a thing.
That's a lot.
So I don't. So if somebody tells me they're leaving a tip or paying some part of this bill, I don't fucking know that nigga. I don't know what's up.
Please watch the language.
No, sorry.
But it is so like we've seen this even in smaller groups too. At least I have, and I'm sure most people have too. When you're passing a bill around, you somehow always end up short when it comes back to the head of the table.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like that. Yeah. And it's like, and again, I don't want to like preach like I'm so generous or something, but like I know that I put down twice what my bill was. Like, so how is it short? So I paid for at least one other person here. Yeah.
So someone just didn't pick up their end of the fucking couch.
Like somebody faked it the whole way.
And I think that probably has a part of it too. Because like they get down to the head of the table and it's just like, well, I already threw in 2 times what I threw in.
And now you're like between 8 people.
And now I got to throw in even more just to get the bill paid.
Yeah, it's like a $300 tab. And now you have like $700. And then it's like, wait, I'm the last one to pay. What the fuck am I supposed to put into this? I feel like I should be taken out because this is way too much.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's crazy. There's just something about having several people. Like some people, like I always... It's like, especially when it's combined, it's often like, here's a 50. Yeah. I know it doubly covers me, but like whatever, the rest can go to tip. But it gets eaten up by people that are like, well, I got this, and they pay $4 less than what their thing was.
5.
All right, so I'm going to skip this bullet point because I think there's a larger conversation to be had about this. But I think this one ties in more with what we were just talking about. A majority of Americans say they would tip 15% or less for an average meal at a sit-down restaurant. Nearly 6 in 10, 57%, say this, including 2% who say they wouldn't leave any tip. Only a quarter of people say they tip 20% or more. So,
let me real quick. I just because I want that was a lot.
Yes,
the vast majority of people tip less than 15%. Is that what I got?
They would tip 15% or less. 57% of the people who participated in this survey, I think I saw maybe
15% or less.
15% or less for an average meal or
Wow.
worse.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And
That's crazy. to
I'll
me,
share a
yeah.
story about this too.
Sure.
Back when I went to Quinnipiac, when I was studying for my fucking worthless sports journalism degree, I was like,
We all did so well.
yeah, I was on the way to class, but I was like, listen, I'm coming from the Hartford area. It's about a 45-minute drive down there.
Ugh.
And I was like, I haven't eaten anything all day. And I just bring like a sandwich and an apple with me. That's not going to satiate shit.
No.
So I stopped off in I think it was an IHOP. And you can make fun of my decision, but it was like the last diner. to,
Needs
like-
must,
Yeah.
needs must. I get
Moons
it.
over Miami. I get it.
And so
Terrible.
I go there and I'm like, I order whatever. Like, I think maybe it was the steak. I don't understand what the fuck I got. But it had like
Ken was in a dark place.
it was. I remember it came with like those fucking hash browns or
Yes.
whatever that they do,
Yeah,
that they're
yeah,
stringy and all
yeah,
that stuff.
yeah.
And I shit you not, the eggs and the hash browns tasted as if they had personally been dunked in the cleaning detergent.
Nice.
I was like, I had to say something because I was like, listen, I'm not complaining, but if you might run into like a Karen type situation that just ends your fucking day.
Mm.
And I'm just like, I don't want to make a stink. I just want to point this out because if the wrong person comes in, then it's going to be a fucking
Turn
problem.
this
I'm not
IHOP
trying to
into
get
a
my
Waffle
meal
House.
comp,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Here's just
Well, and the nice thing about them too is that they did comp my meal,
Mhm.
which was nice. And I kind of like leaned into the waitress. She was very nice. And I'm like, can I still leave you a tip? And then I did. I tipped her like, since it was free, like $2-3 because like it's like
yeah.
it's more than zero because it's a $0 fucking bill. So
20% of zero is still zero.
yeah, so
That's
it's
true. Yeah.
well over that.
Yeah.
I don't care for the premise that you don't leave any tip, even because it's not the waitress or waiter's fault that
If your food
got
is
screwed
garbage.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's who you're tipping. You're not necessarily tipping the cook.
Yeah. Well, very often, you figure that the tips are not shared with the cook.
Yeah.
I've
And
worked
also-
a few places where it's shared
Tip share,
throughout.
yeah.
Like
There are-
tip
there are
sharing.
many-
but
there
it's
are many
not. It's
places.
rare, but
Yeah.
It's rare.
at
It's
least
rare.
when I was.
It
Yeah.
depends. It depends on the place. I'll say this, and you guys have more experience with this than I do. But my limited experience is that when it's a bunch of, let's be honest, a bunch of Mexicans or Spanish immigrants
Mhm.
working in the kitchen, they very rarely get access to the tips.
Yeah.
They're getting paid a low wage for doing the work that they do, which is its own podcast by itself.
I'll speak to
But-
when I worked at the restaurant years ago. I was the only white person in the back,
Yeah.
and we did not get tip share.
Right, exactly, yeah. You get paid like an hourly or whatever you
yeah.
get, you know. But so yeah, for the most part, it's going towards the person who's like doing the serving.
Yeah.
And so it's not their fault when the food is fucked up.
No, it's just the whole system, man. And it can be restaurants are complicated, chaotic entities.
Yeah.
Mm.
And largely, if you're working the front end, you're the last in line.
Yeah,
You know
which
what I
is
mean?
why, like, if something's fucked up on of the meal, like, granted, you're not tasting it, but you could typically notice if something's fucking wrong,
Right.
and you should be like, no,
Yeah.
this I can't bring this out. Like, I get there are food runners and shit, so it's always kind of hard to have that last check.
It's
But-
it's difficult to gauge. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say this, that, you know, for as much as like, because obviously the vibe in this room is one in which, you know, we're describing how people are, how it can go wrong.
Yeah.
And I will say, just to add on to it, and I know that we were going to get there eventually, but it is also a great way to make money with very limited formal education,
Yeah,
let's say.
yeah.
It is.
You just
Honestly,
know.
some of the smartest
Yeah.
people that I meet are bartenders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, who just literally choose to do the job because it pays well.
It does.
And it's stressful in its own
And you
way.
just have to not be an
Yeah.
idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, be nice
Yeah.
and not be an idiot.
Yeah, sociable. Like I wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to do it because I'm way more introvert than I.
Yeah.
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 Well, that's what I mean. Yeah. First of all, it has its own challenges.
Yeah.
And like, you know, bartender Steve works on Wall Street.
Yeah.
Like, I consider him a very intelligent person. You know, I go over to Lower Bank Tavern and, you know, have conversations about Nietzsche,
Yeah.
you know, and fucking Jungian psychology with the people who work there.
Yeah.
They're shockingly educated, you know, even just like randomly you walk into a library and people don't fucking know what the fuck they're talking about with that, you know, and it's just like, you find that bartender on a slow night and you can dive into a conversation about like the originations of Jungian psychology in 1870 like you could anywhere else, you know, but that's a great paying job.
Yeah.
Is the point.
Yep.
It pays very
Well,
well.
it can be.
Based off of the tips.
Yes.
And that's what it is.
You work at the
So-
right bar on a Saturday night, you make a fucking killing.
Yeah.
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 And you only have
The-
to work the weekend
Yeah.
to carry
And be a
yourself.
good
You
partner.
carry
Yeah,
yourself.
you got to be a
And
good
be a-
partner.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah. But and that goes back to that.
or
It's
be
that
super hot.
there's some people that's of course the thing. Some people carry the team,
Yeah.
and some people are the free rider.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, and that's what it comes back to. It's that you can make a living doing this, because for every person that goes in and it's like, obviously, like, I glorified what I'll leave. You guys are like, you know, you've worked in the industry, so
yeah.
you leave a good tip.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, we're all trying to, like, you know, do the right thing, basically. Pay people what they deserve to be
Yeah.
paid.
Yeah.
And then make up a little bit for what the other people aren't doing.
Yeah.
But that's just it. That for every one of you,
Yep.
you know, who knows what it's like, there's some other fucking schlub that goes in there who apparently looks like me, but he's white. and he's tipping 70
Oh,
cents
White Pete.
on a $50
You're out there
tab.
somewhere.
Yeah. Imagine being whiter than me, too.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing.
I'm starting to wonder if there is another one of you.
There
Maybe that
is,
is just
yeah.
you.
There are several
Yeah,
of
it's-
varying shades.
Yeah.
Like a colony.
3 versions of me have gotten banned from that bar. Yeah. I'm going through the races, and I can't slant my eyes.
I wish you remember what that
there.
poker player's name was that you look very
David Williams.
Dave Williams. That's it. Yeah.
I shockingly remember.
But
I was just gonna go Drake.
Yeah.
oh,
Drake. that
yeah.
motherfucker.
No,
He's Canadian.
It's,
I'm blacker than he is any day.
you are.
Most Canadians are.
The Canadian tax really takes it out of them.
It's not ashy.
After working in the service industry for a long time, and like obviously that was a long time ago for me, but like it can kind of teach you a lot of things. It really teach you about dealing with the nature of people
Yeah.
Yeah.
in general. That's why I always said, I haven't said it on here, but like over the years, like I wish everybody could just had to do like 6 months in
Yeah.
the service
Yeah.
industry. So you would just get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some people are just oblivious to it.
There's also a bullet point here that kind of goes along with this. For most people, tipping is first and foremost about service. Around 3/4 of adults, 77%, say the quality of the service they receive is a major factor in deciding whether and how much to tip. None of the other factors we asked about comes close. I'm kind of the mind, because this was like an old, I don't even know if it was a gag. He just said it at the end of one of his like stand-up routines.
Yeah.
Leave 20%. Just like, even if the only way you don't leave 20% is if like the waiter gets up on your table and takes a shit on the fucking table.
Yeah. So I agree. My take on that type of thing is that I tend to like always try and do the 20%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my reasoning behind it is that one of them is it's like the philanthropy of it, which is that I don't do a lot for society. You know, I mostly go out. I'll be honest about it.
Hey man.
I go out and I like to drink. You know?
Cheers.
So if I'm making some money, then we should all. I think that like as regular working people, like you should always have like that. Like that should be in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Like that somebody else has less than you, but they worked just as hard.
Mhm.
So how can you share what you've been blessed with? Let's say,
Sure.
you know, with other people. So I tend to look at like my bartender and I'm like, you are doing such a service for society and for me. So this is my contribution back. I'm not going to save kids with cancer because they're not going to serve me drinks. So that's like lost on me, right? But maybe your kid has cancer. I don't know. I'm going to give you the money so that you can get treatment for somebody
I'll
else.
make it work in my head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do these mental gymnastics like that, you know. But I kind of approach it in that way. On top of that, though, I feel like it's just the sentiment of just the general contribution, like doing what you think to be something which is contributive to the person who's doing this work for you. So it doesn't even need to be this like philanthropic thing that I'm like kind of trying to like, you know, shoehorn my way into.
Yeah.
Instead, it could just be that this person like did the best that they could with the situation they had. And I do try, like, while I'm as much of a piece of shit as I perceive pretty much every other human being to be,
Mhm.
and I stand by that.
We're all garbage
It's that-
people.
Yeah, exactly. But like sometimes you get somebody who's, you know, your waiter, or your bartender, your whatever, right? And they might not be completely on their game that day. Maybe they're having a shitty day.
Sure.
You know, maybe
have off
maybe
nights, yeah.
yeah, you have off nights.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, are you perfect every day?
Nope.
Do you deserve to have your fucking wages stifled in some
That
way
is, that is
because
actually a
you
very
had a
good
shitty
point.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, but that's what happens to you
Yeah.
when you are working for
That
a
is the
service.
volatility of that pay structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I try and give that grace. I try
Yeah.
and give
Yeah.
that grace. That's why I always start at that 20%, not because I'm a generous guy, but because I'm trying to look at it and just be like, imagine if somebody fucking cut my wage every time that I had a shitty day,
Yeah.
you know, because not for nothing, like where would you be?
Yeah.
Or
You know,
something that
I'd be
wasn't-
broke. You know, how many
Yeah.
shitty days I got?
Or something that's not even like, within your control. Like
And
what I
that's
said,
what
like
I'm
if the
saying,
food
yeah.
is crap and then
Yeah.
you get a fucking lower tip because the cook screwed up.
Yeah,
That's
and
not
that-
your fault.
And that's what I mean. It's that's why we should. I wish that people thought about it that way.
Yeah.
You know-
Well, you know what it is? Is it a lot of people do not have multi-level thinking
Yeah.
They
with
don't.
things, and like it's kind of like a base level thing. It's like one thing annoyed them. Now that
That's
this
it.
person is persona non grata to me,
Yeah.
fuck them. Blah blah blah. It's like people don't. That's why I said I wish people would just work in the service.
And you also got
for X
to
amount of
keep in
time.
mind that these waiters and waitresses, their base pay is like, at least from when I remember, it was like
It's like $2
$2.50.
It used to be
Yeah.
$2
Yeah.
and change.
So, yeah, $2.
I don't know what it is. I'm sure it's
Yeah.
slightly.
It might.
higher,
It
but
might as well. We can just call it close to zero.
Yeah.
Let's be
Yeah.
honest about what
It's like
$2 is.
they're got to make.
Yeah.
They
You're
gotta
making
pay themselves too.
100% of your wages off of tips.
Yep.
And presumably, and I think that this is a fair extrapolation, because you know that that's how you make your money. You're doing the best that you can. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there's not like shitty fucking waiters and waitresses and bartenders and whatnot.
There's shitty
Or it's
people in
like-
every industry.
Yeah,
it
yeah,
exists.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, does everybody belong in that industry?
Probably
no.
not.
Maybe you should go and make
Right.
$20 an hour over at Costco or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that the majority of people who find themselves in that field for an extended period of time, it's because they are willing to put forth the work to do
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And it is a challenging job. I would not be able to. Basically,
They
They
anything in the
typically
service
know what
industry,
they're
I
getting
can't do.
into.
Yeah, but you're doing it because this is how you're going to pay your bills. And if you're exemplary, then you can get a great wage. And if you're working at the wrong place or whatever, then you can still make a living.
But the
and support
thing
your
with-
family.
The
Yeah.
thing with that is, even if you are exemplary every fucking night, you still might get a fucking $0 tip.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Just because
Yeah.
of
Just because you're
the
contending with
temperament
an
of
asshole.
whoever you're serving.
And yeah, and even beyond that, it's like you're so, and you kind of said this before, I forget your exact wording, but it's like I go over to my bar of choice in the area,
Yeah.
and sometimes I'll walk in there and I'm the only one there.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you as the bartender, you have to hang out
Yeah.
until close. You're working an 8-hour shift, and maybe I'm the only person who comes in, you know?
Yeah.
So now you have to go home with your pockets empty.
Yeah.
You got to put food on the table for your child, you know, for your animals and so on and so forth. And so I feel like if you enjoy these services, you know, I like bars. So then you should be cognizant of that.
Yes.
You know, because
Yes.
if you don't appreciate things and don't put forth the effort to provide for people who do services for you, then it goes away. You know?
That's
Yeah.
fair. Yeah.
If you don't want to tip, cook yourself. Make
Yeah.
your own drink.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And on-
nobody tips me when I cook at home.
and on top of that, I will say this, that people who go out to the bar, because again, obviously I love to, and I spend on a fucking burger
Right.
$15 that I could have made at home for $2.
Yeah.
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 I'm
And
going
better.
out to the bar. Exactly. I go out to the bar because I want to.
Yeah.
So paying the tip is a part of that.
Yeah.
If you don't think that you have the money or whatever your situation is to compensate the people who did this work for you, well, then you can't afford a $15 burger.
It's the
Yeah.
In
same
which
people.
case, you go and fucking cook at home.
Yeah.
It's
And
the
there's
same
nothing wrong
people
with
who are happy to pay that $50 to $70 surcharge to get the tickets to go see their favorite band,
that. Yeah.
and not bat a goddamn eye.
Yeah. Yeah. But then won't pay somebody.
And then won't
to
pay
go.
somebody
Yeah.
like $15 on their $30 fucking food order.
No, I got 70 cents on a $50 bill. There we are.
Well, I mean, you know.
Apparently.
And it's like
Well, one of
most
those
people that
pennies were
are in those industries, either waiting tables or bartending specifically, I'll speak
Yeah.
to, they're good at it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
they're still there because they are good at it. They're providing a service to, I mean, there are older people that come in because they have nothing else to do.
Your bartender and
So, like,
obvious-
you are part therapist, you
Yeah.
are lending an
priest
ear.
is where I was going.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
a modern day priest.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what a lot of these bartenders are doing. I mean, it's also cut with the assholes they got to deal with
I
that
don't
are
get the
like,
touching from a bartender that I get from a priest.
What?
All right, moving
Yeah.
on to this last bullet point then.
Please.
All right, so
Unpack that trauma.
Americans' tipping behaviors vary widely by situation. About 9 in 10 adults who eat at sit-down restaurants, 92%, say they always or often leave a tip in this scenario. Among those using other services, smaller majorities tip when getting a haircut, 78%, having food delivered, 76%, buying a drink at a bar, 70%. We've talked about that a great deal. Or using a taxi or rideshare service, 61%. Relatively few Americans always or often tip when buying a coffee, 25%, or eating at a fast casual restaurant, 12%. Who's tipping McDonald's?
Yeah, I'm not tipping at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I will to this. I will say, in my mind, like I come across it where like there is a difference a little bit between like going to like Manhattan Bagel and it's like you go there and they do the thing on the screen to you, but like between that and like a bartender or a waitress, and still I find myself tipping these not nearly as much, but I do tip for these other services. You said something at bar like 73% tip.
That means a 27% don't.
Don't,
Is that
yeah.
math right?
That's what struck me as crazy.
That is a big gap of not tipping at all.
That's insane.
70% buying a drink at a bar. That is less than having food delivered and getting a haircut, which throws me off because my mom's owned salons for like my entire life. So I don't really know how that works.
And in the era when I didn't cut
I've
my
got a
own
shaved
hair,
head, so I don't know. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I still give 20%. I just because
Well,
I have
you
nothing else to
probably-
pay. Well, I get a whole
you
bunch of
get
things
shape-ups,
done, but
yeah.
it's like I don't know what to tip them. 20%, it's what everything else is. So I guess that's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
Like
one
I literally have not had a professional haircut in like 20 something years, but it was I always tipped at the end of that. Yeah.
I used to. I believe I used to tip. Like you had to obviously get haircuts in the military, and so I believe I tipped the person that just gave me a fucking crew cut, whatever the hell I used to get. And then like in the few times
I
where
thought they did that on on the boat. Like
In the military, you pay for everything, just to be clear.
I thought it was just
He
with
buys
his time.
uniforms.
well, I mean, I think I only got one freaking haircut on the ship, and it's just because we were having like we had to get our pictures taken. And it was fucking stupid.
It was photo day.
Yeah. So I'm like, all right, I'll do it here because I always used to wait to just to get the haircut done like by either a civilian or drive home on leave.
Right.
I have my mom do it because it's free.
Yeah.
Free. It's not like I don't pay for it with manual labor.
Yeah. Hey Ma, I got a tip for it.
Hire a gardener.
But that's also the thing that threw me off because the lounge is a restaurant, but it's also a coffee shop.
Yes.
So were those people just confused as to whether they needed a tip? Did they not think they needed to tip because they paid to get in because they bought a ticket to get
That's
in?
probably it.
I
yeah.
would say yes.
Yeah.
From an outside perspective, I would say if anything was going to confuse it, is that they paid like an admission, I guess.
But at the same point, like when you go to a bar that charges a cover charge at the door, you're still tipping the bartender when you go to buy drinks and shit.
That's true.
When you
You
go
are-
to a
you are
strip club,
absolutely
you
right.
pay to get in. You still tip the girls.
Just the tip, though.
I mean, like for me, just because like I tip everybody where it seems I should tip people is because I suffered in the industry for a while. I get it, but like, so for this event, I guess you bought a ticket to show up.
Yes.
Is it like something like where you got like was a drink attached to the ticket?
Yeah,
or-
you got like it was like a $5 like little ticket, but so you could get like a
you
coffee
still
or
should,
tea
like,
or something.
So
You
like
should still
with
be
that,
tipping,
with
yeah.
my mindset, how that goes. So like with something
Doesn't
like
cost
that,
you nothing to put $1 in the fucking thing.
whether it's that or something else that you get like drink tickets.
Yeah, because technically you already bought the drink.
My mindset is I'm going to tip at least minimum what those drink tickets are worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
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 That's
I think
kind of
that's
Yeah, like
yeah.
pay for the drink, but put it in the tip jar instead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's actually funny too, because when I was talking to her, got the tea, and she's like, here we go. You don't have to pay anything. I'm like, can I
Yeah,
still
no.
give you a tip?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh yeah, I should probably do that. So she put out the tip jar
Right,
then.
right.
But again,
But it's
most of the freaking event was to come.
Yeah.
Right.
And people did not even stop to think like, oh, hey, like I approached her to have a cookie warmed up, but I'm not going to give her a tip.
yeah, you shouldn't need a tip jar to tip.
Yeah.
Like you tip. you just do that.
Yeah.
Just give the fucking money over.
You put like most of the time too. There is a jar to throw your
Yeah.
tip in. You just put like I threw $2 in.
Right, yeah. And here's something else I want to say, because I've had this argument thrown at me before when it comes to this topic. It's like, oh, well, I only got so much money. I can't, if you
Well, then
can't
you don't have
afford
to
to
go.
tip,
Yeah.
you should not be out getting.
Yeah.
Ask for a tap water and give him the money that you were going to spend on whatever drink you were
Yeah.
going to.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but like, fuck you for that. That
Yeah,
is
no,
a
that's your own
nonsense
fucking
argument.
problem.
I
Stop,
only have enough money to serve me,
Right.
and not for the people who serve me.
Yeah.
stop being poor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were 21 people there. Let's just estimate that. If
Yeah.
everyone gave $2, that's $42.
Yeah.
That's worth her time on a Saturday night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a Saturday night. She had to put a few hours in.
Yeah.
Like people should be paid for the work that they do.
Yeah.
And we all.
And I'm sorry, this is not a corporate entity. Like,
Yeah.
fuck you.
It's
You
a
know, like-
small, it's a small business.
Right.
For the love of fuck, do something kind.
Also, on the other end of that, Saturday night is a great night to fight, and I know who we're talking about.
Way to
Ugh.
steamroll the whole conversation.
Should have thrown down with all of them.
it's just baffling. It really is just baffling to me.
All right, guys. We got everything out that we wanted in terms of tipping.
More or less, don't be a dickhead. Sorry.
Don't be a dickhead. Yeah. Yeah.
Stop
All right.
being poor.
All right, guys. It's time to roast me.
All right. All right.
All
I
right.
got-
So
I-
what did the gentleman look like?
That's really funny that you say that.
Oh.
So
His name was Hank, and
name
he's
was-
actually a Jim.
we'll go with Hank because I don't really want to
Yeah,
dine this
fair.
gentleman out.
Oh.
So
Oh, so there's a second date.
So what happened was I get there, obviously 4 drinks in, and
It's a coffee shop, right?
Let him
All right.
Yeah, let him get his story out.
so I show up and they're like, all right, you're number 11, go sit in booth that's labeled 11. And I sit there and what do I find but another man at the booth? And I just start laughing. I'm like, how funny is this? This is I didn't realize it was that kind of speed dating.
That's the day and age we're in, Dan.
So at one point, like, I think the dude was just kind of like, hey, I don't think we're supposed to be seated next to each other. I think this is supposed to be like a guy-girl thing.
Well, that's just Trump talking.
Yeah. And then she's like, oh yeah, this shouldn't be the case. I'll move you.
Okay.
And then the way that had to have worked is that he got moved to an empty booth because I was talking to this young lady, and then when our time was up, I moved over to that booth and it was empty. And that's
that was your time to be alone, bitch.
and that's when I was like, I'm gonna go see our friend. I'm gonna go get this tea because
They
I showed
should
up
have,
fashionably late.
You
they
need
should have
that
seat
thing.
warmers just for those instances where
So-
there's just some rando sitting there.
I-
That's always there.
Oh god damn it. I've never done anything like this. So do you spend like X amount of time? Is
Yeah,
it a
you get, like-
rotation type thing or
Yeah, you get like 5-6 minutes with the person.
interesting.
Yeah.
This sounds like a nightmare for me.
Oh yeah, I hated it. Why do you think I left? Like I left at 6:50. I got home when it ended. I was like, oh my god, this is great. So glad I left early.
Oh, you freed up a position so that nobody had to sit in the booth by
So it
himself.
was you driving or Hank?
No, we didn't speak after that because
I'm
it was
sure.
a very, very awkward situation.
Mm.
I did legitimately point out how funny is this though.
Mm.
Like the first you sit down and it's a dude.
What's
Sometimes that's where romance begins.
Yeah. What was? So I'm always curious about this sort of thing. Like, what's the vibe of the type of person? And I don't mean to, like, for you to like cast yourself in this, but like, what is the vibe of person that shows up to a thing like this?
It depends. There was I think based on my conversations with these women, some of them were kind of like, divorced, don't really have time to put up with your shit.
Yeah.
Some were
That's
nice.
the right kind of woman. That's
Yeah.
what you want. Yeah.
Some were nice. Some were eager to have a conversation.
Mhm.
But for the most part, one of the best conversations I had was with a bartender,
Oh.
and she was like, "I really wish there was alcohol here." I'm like, I do too.
Oh.
That's when you slip her that gin flask that you got in your pocket.
See,
I heard it too.
I needed to hit you guys up for a flask, and I didn't do it.
I got one in the car when we
Yeah.
go.
Well, now I'm never doing it again.
That's checked off his list.
Yeah.
That's never gonna happen again.
I could just picture like feeding and like those like camelbacks that you can fill with.
Oh yeah.
And just like
It's
feed
just
the
gonna-
hose
it's
down
gonna
from the
get-
drop ceiling.
He somehow got it work, so he's just like pulling.
Yeah, we lowered it down. We lowered it down.
Got
That
the
way,
drop
when Dan
ceilings.
does hit that awkward moment, he doesn't know what to say. It's just like. It's like, excuse me for a moment.
I mean,
And then we hoist it back up real quick. And then you pretend it didn't happen. Because it's all about gaslighting, Dan.
it's something like that. Like I've never done it, but it just seems like for somebody like me, such a nightmare.
Oh yeah, because like I was exhausted.
I mean, I give
the
you a
last
lot of
one.
props for doing it.
I was going to say
yeah,
the same thing.
yeah.
I think that does really deserve some props. Because
Yeah.
honestly, like, yeah, I don't think I would have the balls for it.
Well, it's also like first of all, I had to have several gin drinks before I even
I'll be
showed up.
fair.
I was with
but
you. For
yeah.
this.
Yeah.
It was delightful.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, like
delightful.
we had an extra one, and
Yeah.
I was like, well, I'm gonna be late, but I also didn't care.
That resulted in me having 12 whiskeys.
I'm gonna be the bad boy.
Yeah, I didn't put my name tag on. I didn't fill out the card.
Perfect.
I didn't do anything that they asked me to do, save for just fill out the thing on my phone,
Yeah.
and I did that when I got home. It's
Yeah.
like fuck this.
Oh my goodness.
I was so
When you
like
got home.
I was such a freaking chip on my shoulder type thing. Like people were like, what? Like the girls would be like, all right, what's your name? And I'm like, oh, that's right. I didn't put my name tag on. I don't play by the rules, apparently.
I'm a bad boy.
And he doesn't answer them at all.
Serious question,
Yes.
Dan. I'm actually not even joking, though I have been drinking, so we can take this with a grain of salt.
All right.
Can we go and cosplay this the next time it happens at the cafe? Because I have a great like cowboy costume in mind, and I just think that this would be fun. And we've never met before, obviously.
Stay
My
tuned for that.
Yeah.
Oh, Christ.
And I'm
almighty.
going there for a D&D thing. I forget when, but I hope it's not the same.
Are you joking?
No,
They're doing D&D at the cafe.
this is the second time, yeah.
Can we give it, Dan? Can you give a shout out to the cafe? We're talking about it the whole goddamn time.
Yes,
Yeah.
the Revolutionary Cafe. It's in Tom's River. It's
Yeah.
in it's off of what is it?
Indian Head Road?
Indian Head.
571
Yeah.
Indian
Yeah,
Head.
Indian
yeah,
Head.
Route 9.
It's a very nice place. You should check it out if you've made it this far into the podcast. Obviously, like you
No,
got good,
please do.
good
Give
food.
if you're
good-
around, give your business to it. The food's excellent. The service is excellent. You will not be disappointed.
Yes, exactly. So check that out.
Mm.
Tell them Loud and Drunk sent you.
And there we are.
Yeah.
And we're gonna cosplay there.
I mean,
And
we can try.
I just
always
hope
try.
that the owner doesn't hear this, because when we show up in full cowboy outfits,
She's-
She will kill all of us.
She's on the
Yeah.
phone right now.
I hope not.
yeah.
I hope not.
You're on the Loud and Drunk podcast.
She was our first caller.
Oh my goodness! All right, now there we
All
are.
right. Anyway, any other questions on this? No one's going to take a swipe.
No, like I said,
Did you
I'm
get any
Proud of
numbers?
you. I'm
I
proud
would
of
never do it. I would not have the nuts to fucking do it.
you. Yeah.
Even with drinks ahead of time. That's straight up.
I was ruining it the entire fucking week. Like I legitimately sent her a text.
I mean, were you talked into it?
no,
Or...
no.
Oh, okay.
I have this mode. I guess it's like the military part of me.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, oh yeah, because everything else has been going so great. Like so, like
This might as well.
you might as well just try it. And then I was just like, oh, I'm gonna make myself do this, aren't I?
Mhm.
Oh,
Well, like,
boy.
I truly appreciate that you fucking did it.
Yeah.
Like, straight up. I would never.
Yeah.
I'd be so inside my own head about it. No chance.
I didn't even think it was still a thing. Like, I kind of remember it when I was a teenager. It was kind of on the way out, like a speed dating thing at coffee shops.
He did.
But then it just wasn't a thing when I was like of age
Yeah.
to really put any kind of whole
Here's
heart
something
into it.
fucked up that I just remembered. When you and I were in high school together, I doubt you would remember, but they did a matchmaking service thing in high school. How fucked
Oh,
up
that's
wow.
even
That's
weirder.
weird, yeah.
You filled out a paper. I didn't show up for it.
Oh.
And I'm positive you did it.
Ah, that's a certain. I do all right though.
Yeah. But I remember, and it like matched you up. You got a printout of fellow students you'd be compatible with. Like, how fucked up is that?
That is weird.
Yeah, that's
'Cause
weird.
It's like
Back
no
into my
wonder
fucking
bullying
head.
became a super thing,
Yeah.
and now we don't like it.
Why would you do that in high school? It's like, hey kids, you want to fuck?
Right.
Yeah,
Like that's
that's why you had parties.
I mean, the answer is yes.
Yeah, the answer's
yeah, that
always
is
yes.
the age where you're like, yes, I would like very much to do something to that.
I'm
That young woman
interested
over
in
there.
making bad decisions
Yes.
sexually.
Yes.
I think they did it for Valentine's Day of senior year.
Nice.
And it was so like,
That's
it was,
when I have my best.
I
sex.
kind of
Yeah,
remember
stuff.
something to that
Yeah, yeah.
effect, but
And
Not
this was
like
this was
that.
they probably it was like probably 2 months before they did that job aptitude test thing that.
Oh yeah.
And I remember this is
And
so
nobody's a
stupid, so
janitor.
funny. What I got was I'd be an excellent nut gatherer.
What does that even mean?
Holy
You'd be a better squirrel than a human?
Yeah. Yeah. I forgot about that. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
A nut
Oh, the
gatherer.
trauma just comes back.
Yeah.
Carter was
Yeah.
a nut gatherer, wasn't he?
I'm sorry. Who?
Peanut
Carter?
farmer.
Peanut farmer.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, it's a totally different thing.
Is
He
it?
ran a farm. He didn't gather nuts. That's
Yeah, sounds like he's
literally what a
gathering
squirrel-
nuts. Okay, he's harvesting nuts.
He
Whatever.
literally- he was told to be a squirrel. He was told to be a squirrel.
I'm just saying he could be president.
Yeah.
And what
Well,
passes.
now he could. Yeah, now he could. Everybody else can do it.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Yep, but I'll never do that again. But you should subscribe to this podcast,
Please.
and you can leave us a 5-star review. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube or Rumble, give us a like, comment, and subscribe on either one of those platforms that you're checking us out on. So for Justin, Pedro, Moses, I'm Dan, and until next time, I'm never fucking doing that goddamn speed dating. That was so.
We're going to
awkward.
do it together.
Nah, it's like
Yeah. We're going to cosplay it.
you can be a cowboy, but I'm gonna be Zorro. I'm just gonna show up like in a freaking cape
All right.
and like with a
All right.
little freaking what is it, a fencer sword or something like
Yeah,
that.
It is. It
rapier,
is.
yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
almost a little bit offended since obviously I am the Spanish one.
Well, that's what it adds into it.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it, Dan.
Listen,
You're my brother from another mother.
But,
Don't say how offensive was that Zorro used a French sword.
All right, yeah. You know what? Listen, we're all faking it. We're all faking it. Can
That's
I
what
cook you
they
something
want in the war.
foil?
We love you, folks.
good night, everybody.
Good night.